what is the end goal of all this? Like to get rich, to make a living doing this, or
All right, well, welcome to the Indigenous Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today I have Mytegia Lee with me. She is one of our tribal liaisons serving the Gallup and Navajo Nation area. And then we also have Tiffany. What is your last name, Tiffany? Sorry.
Hey, Robinson.
Tiffany Robinson with Cowboy Iron Gym, who we're gonna be interviewing. This will mostly be a conversation with Mytegia and Tiffany. I'm just gonna kind of step back, but I may or may not have some questions to ask as well. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and then we can just dive into the conversation.
Okay, I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. Just as Cecilia had mentioned, my name is Mytegia Lee. I am from the Manuelito community, which is west of Gallup. I'm an enrolled member of the Navajo tribe. My clanships are Ashin Ishle, Kiani Bashichin, Bilagana Dashiche, Arot Trabahe. I'm sorry, Bilagana Dashinal Arot Trabahe Dashiche, and that is a saltwater clan born for Towering House, and maternal grandparents are of Edgewater, paternal grandparents being of Caucasian descent. And aside from that, I serve as an executive director for Southwest Native Assets Coalition, where we do financial literacy, credit counseling, and homeownership workshop education that's HUD certified. And we also do small dollar debt and business lending. And I have a background in social work, financial services and management, as well as banking. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there, and we'll go ahead and move on over to Tiffany.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Tiffany Robinson. Yate Tiffany Inisha. Fanagati Nishla, Bilagana Bashishi. I'm still working on my Navajo. I picked it up recently again. So anyway, I own a gym here in Gallup, New Mexico. I was born and raised in Sanders, Arizona, so live there. That's where I originate from. That's where my family's from. And that's home to me. So that's how we ended up in Gallup. And interestingly enough, never thought I would end up back on the reservation. So here I am, and I'm excited to be here. So
Good. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and start off with a few questions. I'm going to go ahead and start off by just once again reintroducing your business. What's the name of your business? What industry? And what type of business is it that you're running? Are we a sole proprietor, LLC, brick and mortar? And is your business on or off tribal?
okay. So we have a full service gym, dumbbells, machines, equipment, a turf area, functional fitness. It's available and open to anybody of all levels, fitness levels. So it is formed as an LLC. It is not on tribal land. It's actually in Gallup.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's about it.
Okay. And one thing I want to add in there is that you guys are 24-hour, right?
Yes, we are. Yeah. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're
yes.
fine.
We are 24 hours. Yeah, we do. We offer the 24-hour service, and we keep that fee pretty low just because of the area we're in, and understanding that like the hours people work such odd hours around here. So
Mm-hmm. Financial fitness is very important to a lot of those that are in the healthcare and just I guess just in about every field. It's like a coping mechanism. It's good for stress management. So I just wanted to throw that in there so that everybody can kind of get that idea of your hours of operation. Okay, so next is what led you to start your business? Tell us your story and how you got started.
oh gosh. Okay, so about a little over 6 years ago, I was living in Minnesota, and I had my first experience in a gym. I grew up on the res. We don't have gyms on the res, like I climbed trees and rode horses and, hay and all that good jazz. So Gym was very foreign to me, very uncomfortable. Living in a city at the time was very foreign and uncomfortable to me. And I found some peace there. And so I joined a gym and did a women's group fitness class. And that's kind of where my journey began in fitness and kind of finding my place there. So fast forward, my husband and I moved out here back to the res. I brought him out here one time and he loved it out here and he wanted to live here. So we came back and it's been a really wonderful experience actually, but we came back and we started off as personal trainers. So as you know, if you live on the res, it's difficult to find a job out here. And he struggled finding a job and I was enrolled in school full time. So he started going to the gym and he was just going to the gym at Wowie Gym in Gallup. He would just go every day. And he's a personal trainer, so he kind of found clients and his clientele just built enough that I quit my job and was able to come personal train full time. And then we just kind of transitioned out of that and we started tossing some ideas around about a year into personal training, like maybe having our own personal training studio. We didn't know, we were really good friends with Wowie and his family, so we were unsure of like where our place was in Gallup. And so it was a little like rocky at first. And so, and I think that because we were talking about barriers, and I think that like is one of them I kind of want to touch on living in a small town. Like it's so hard when you open your own business and there's other businesses in a small town, and you get through those barriers and it's been a beautiful thing. Like we've actually gotten through it. It was hard at first, but we've gotten through it. And that you can live and function in a small town and be competitive with other businesses and still survive, and you don't all have to hate each other and you can all still get along. So
just finding it conducive.
Yeah. So we just kind of, we tossed some ideas around and we got connected with a small business development center here in Gallup. So we were working with Cindy Jarvison and we were able to just kind of start brainstorming some ideas. We had some mentors here in Gallup as well that were clients of ours that had stepped in just to kind of guide us, through the process. And literally came to the table with nothing. We worked an entire year on our business plan. And we went to the Small Business Development Center like every afternoon for an entire year. It was tough. And a lot of that, like those numbers and the details and, I didn't go to college for business. Like there's a barrier, right? Like I'm just passionate about helping people in their fitness journey. So that was hard. It was really hard. So we built this really awesome business plan and we started going to the banks and looking for buildings and spaces, and we looked in Show Low. We actually live in Arizona, so we looked in other places. I actually looked in Sanders, and then it worked out best that it would be in Gallup. So we ended up here, and I don't know, the dream it came to life every day. We just put one foot in front of the other, and that's how we got here.
Okay. So already you kind of just went over a few of the things that we wanted to ask you, which was, what was the resistance, what was the hardship, and you shared a little bit about the barriers that you faced and what you needed to do to overcome them. So, and for me to counteract that, I wanted to ask additional questions as far as the barriers that you experienced in Arizona and the banking experience that you had. Do you feel as if the traditional lending aspects of business lending were fit to what you wanted to do and were in alignment with your business plan and met the needs of what your financial situation was at that time to get you started?
Absolutely not.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? I know that we've had personal discussions, but I kind of want to bring light to that conversation so that, there's more awareness on what your barriers were and what needs to happen to change that.
Yeah. Okay. So, we built this business plan and that was the first step. And that will always be my advice to anyone starting. Like, go find yourself. If you don't connect with someone at a small business development center where you're at, like they're all over the place, or you can find other people, find a mentor, whatever. But that was extremely helpful to go to the bank with. now we went to the bank with that business plan, and I went and the bank loved the business plan, but they were like, okay, what do you have to offer? And that's where the barrier was. We didn't have a lot to offer. We live on a ranch on the reservation, a family-owned ranch. It's been in the family for generations and generations. That's where our home is. And those are things that you cannot use as collateral. You can't, that's my family's land, you know, and also it's just difficult because of being, you know, the reservation and all the laws and policies, like you can't, it's difficult to do. So there were a lot of loopholes there. So the other issue that I kind of ran into, which I think would be a discussion to have, is I live in Sanders, which is in Arizona, and the business is in New Mexico. And so there were a lot of organizations that I did try to apply for, but because my ID was different than where the location of the business was, they couldn't do anything. So there were points in time, to be completely honest, that I just put everything away and I was like, this isn't meant to happen. And some things lined up. We were able to, without like going into too much detail, but we pursued some other options, but we had to seek some outside help. Some outside resources. And that took, the first time we went to the bank to the time I actually got the loan, I mean, that was like a 8-month process. So.
Okay. So in the process, one of the things that I'm going to go ahead and elaborate a little bit more on, just so that we have our listeners that have a general idea of it, is just that the policy structure of the organizations and the entities that you were dealing with just were not feasible for you because you were an Arizona resident and it's a border town. We're very close to Gallup. We're very close to New Mexico. And their policies are that if you live in Arizona, you have to get your loan in Arizona. And other organizations that were trying to service you that were border towns require you to have a New Mexico address, a New Mexico driver's license, and an address in New Mexico. Is that the clarity of what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
So it made that next step forward for you very difficult in that aspect, that it was a kind of like a tug of war, you know, they did have resources, but you weren't able to access those resources because of that.
Right.
Okay. We wanted to elaborate on that because I know that that's one of the biggest things that we talk about is, you know, the policies that are being set and written for a lot of border towns, and Navajo being very large and very vast. We need to have those conversations so that we're able to get this message to the right people. And in addition to everything that we just talked about, I wanted to go ahead and ask you, is there anybody that you wanted to highlight, like a particular person, organization, or resources that helped you on your journey to starting your business?
Oh gosh. So I could go on and on about this. This is the beautiful part of owning a small business, is like these people just start coming to your life, and it's just amazing. I've just had so many beautiful friendships. So we've had a few people along the way that have helped us. Like I mentioned, the Small Business Development Center. Both my husband and I have some mentors here in Gallup that we're extremely close with that helped guide us along the way. Our families, of course. And then just the town of Gallup, like I can't, the chamber, like, I mean, the other businesses here in town, like it's just been, people come out of the woodwork. And when you're passionate about something and you bring the passion to the table, I think that's important. And those barriers that we kind of talk about, you can bring all the passion and the work you want to the table, but in the long run, like there still are a lot of barriers that you have to overcome. And you just have to keep putting, like I said, like one foot in front of the other to get through them. And I mean, from the places we got the signs, the electrical, the guys that did the electrical for us, just the entire thing, you know, the people of the community, when our equipment came, we had people that just showed up and helped us bring equipment in. So yeah, just the city of Gallup and the outlying communities, and of course our families, and all our members, you know, they've been amazing. So this is their gym. This is honestly like, you guys get to kind of decide what you want here. So.
And it was a lot of organized madness. I know I followed a lot of it on social media because you were very open about the process. You were very open with everybody that had questions and everybody that you were working with. And you made it easier for organizations such as myself and tribal liaisons and people that are out there that have the resources or some of the resources. We're tapping into the few resources that we do have available that we make available to business or owners or entrepreneurs such as yourself that are seeking these resources more accessible. And we try to bring that awareness to them. So the next thing I wanted to say is, are there any resources or help that you wish that you had received that were just not available to you that would have made the journey or the process of starting your business easier?
Man. Yeah, I wish, and with all due respect, I wish I could have got help from the tribe. I wish that I could have gotten return phone calls and some guidance and support and direction and answers, really. And I think that's the most frustrating thing as being a Navajo woman and owning a Navajo, this is a Native-owned business. Like, I feel like I should have been able to get some help, and that's the first place I did go. But
yes,
there were not. It went. I mean, I think we all kind of know how that goes, and I just wish that we could get a conversation talking about, like, there's so many Navajo women out there that have beautiful ideas and wonderful. Like, I mean, I drive past the little flea market in Sanders, you know, on a daily basis, and I'm like, holy smokes, this is so cool. Like, these people, you know, there's like so many people with so many creative ideas. And I think just having a resource for people that even are selling food, or, you know, why is it so difficult to get help? Like, why?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's probably the main thing, because it would have maybe been a little bit proud of our moment too, to be able to say, you know, I was able to get help from the tribe as well, you know.
Yeah. And believe me, that's
so,
something that we're trying to combat ourselves and we're advocating for. But those are the conversations that we want to bring to the table. And we want to have these podcasts with business owners and entrepreneurs such as yourself, so that we're able to elevate those conversations and we're able to advocate a little bit more. We have worked some with economic development. We have brought conversations in support of entrepreneurs such as yourself. And I could hear the frustration in your voice. And I think that, you know, we all try to advocate more for that. And that's one thing that I wanted to kind of get a little bit more feedback with, is just to say that we see it a lot, like you're expressing. We have swap meets every weekend. We have farmers markets. We have, you know, the downtown events that are being hosted. They're being hosted over at the downtown little square that they have right there, the courthouse square. And then in addition, right by the train station. And there's just so many different locations, and we have so many entrepreneurs, but there's always that hesitation because they're always met with challenges and barriers internally with our own tribe, with our own tribal leaders, with our own sectors in our tribal government that create those barriers. So having that conversation, I think it's beautiful. I think it's awesome. I like your enthusiasm, and I like that you're able to open up about those experiences that you have. And then we'll go ahead and roll it over to Cecilia.
Sorry, I just had a thought that popped up in my head with this specific topic, because you mentioned one of the barriers that you found regarding funding was that you couldn't get funding from New Mexico or from Arizona because of the address and all that issue. And I was just thinking to myself, well, if there would have been a department or a funding source with the tribe that you could have turned to, maybe that would have helped mitigate that specific barrier, because it's hard because the Navajo Nation is on New Mexico and Arizona, you know, and so it shouldn't matter whether your business is like on Arizona or New Mexico, because you're with the Navajo Nation. So I just wanted to say that I was just thinking, if there was an economic development fund or like an entrepreneur office with the tribe, I could see that helping not just your business, but other businesses who find themselves in that situation where they may or may not qualify for certain funding with the state or with certain federally funded programs because of that specific issue. So that was just something that I thought, and I was like, that would be a potential solution, at least in my mind. So I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that would be absolutely great if there was, and I think it would be even better, but I know this takes a lot of work, but if it could be business owners, like people within maybe a volunteer position, or I don't know, something like where you're offering your help and extending. I mean, I will help anybody that wants to start a business or anything like that and try to guide them in the right direction. And I don't always have all the answers, and someone else that owns another business might have the answers, and they might have the resources, or they might have gone through that same barrier. I think one of the main things that I ran into when I was calling around was just the lack of like information, you spoke with someone and you just didn't get anywhere. And I think, yes, exactly what you're talking about, having some sort of smaller, instead of just having to go to economic development, having a smaller, something that's a little bit smaller, more one-on-one, more personal. I think that's a much better option.
Okay. And then next, we're going to go ahead and move on to where can New Mexico as a whole improve in making the path of Indigenous entrepreneurship easier and more accessible? What did you see on the side of New Mexico that we could do better at?
I do think that these small business development centers and these places that entrepreneurs can go to kind of just throw their ideas out there and have someone throw some feedback at them and say, maybe that's a great idea, or let's try to do something different, put them in the right hands. I'm grateful that we found the one we did here at UNM, and I know they're not all the people aren't passionate, that work at these places, but I think as a whole, as a state as a whole, I think just offering, again, something smaller. We're small businesses. We're not large businesses. I mean, I don't know how to, it was so extremely difficult to have our equipment that was shipped here, and like trying to figure out shipping, and, there's all these things that you have to figure out and pay for, and you don't know. And I think just having someone to, just kind of put you in the right direction or put you in the right hands, I mean, that could be a make or break for somebody that wants to start a business,
Okay.
So just that one phone call, that first initial phone call of like, hey, I want to start a business, like, this is what I want to do, like, that's so important. That first phone call someone makes, or that first contact someone makes, and I think just little smaller organizations would be helpful.
Yeah. Do you feel as if some of the resources that we share, that I send out on a regular, as far as the contact list that we have, everything that UNM has, and the empowerment workshops that Sister Sky offers that I have shared, and resources, are those beneficial to the work that you're doing?
Yeah, they're beneficial. Yeah. I just haven't, that's the other thing. And I think that's another barrier, is like, you get thrown so many things and like you start sorting through them and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot.
Yeah.
But some of the events like that you send to me, I like the repetitive emails that you send out, and like you just keep sending them to me, and then at some point it's like, okay, I do need to look at that. And I have applied for a couple of the grants that you sent me, so I think that's important, because you are one of the smaller organizations that is more one-on-one and personal. I can see your face and I'm talking to a person, I know who I'm actually speaking to. So yeah, that's helpful.
Okay. All right. And we're always here. One thing I want to let you know is that we do have a lot of resources. We're always here. There's always guidance. If there's ever a time that you do feel like there's a hiccup or a barrier, or, where should I go? What should I do? We're here. That's what we're here for, as mentors, as tribal liaisons, And even at the extent of the organization that I'm running, as far as the lending goes, you know, we've seen that there is that barrier. We've seen that the underwriting and traditional lending does not work for our area. And I'm proud to say that even with the untraditional lending that I've done, we experience zero delinquency, and that's because we're so in tune with our clients and we follow up. We're strategic in it to the extent of where we eliminate any barriers that we're going to foresee. You know, we want to make sure that we're setting you up for total success. So aside from that, how has the entrepreneurship and your business owning impacted your overall life and well-being?
Oh gosh. It's been chaotic, but it's been a good chaotic.
Mhm.
I think finding balance between home life and business, and then there's the whole world of staff, you know. You think that like you're just, that's easy, but that's difficult. So it's been, overall though, I'm doing what I love, and I think just every day that I get to show up and I do what I love and I get to see people, you know, people's lives changing, that's beautiful to me, and that's worth it to show up to every day. And some of the days are long and some of the days are exhausting, but you get through them, you know.
And I'm going to go out on a whim and say that I think that what you're doing is phenomenal, because physical health has a lot to do with mental health and mental health awareness. It's a way of really being positive and having that positive outlook and structure. And just even going to the gym and having my first experience there, it was, if you have any questions about anything, don't be afraid to hesitate to ask for help. If you have a preference of, you know, what you would like, the atmosphere, or any suggestions, we're here. You know, so I want to commend you on that, because you made it very receiving, and that's one thing that I think is very critical to success. So aside from that, if somebody was interested in pursuing entrepreneurship but has not taken the leap, what is the one piece of advice that you would give them? Like advice, words of wisdom, encouragement, a hard truth, any and all of it. We want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay. I just do it. I know it sounds crazy, but you just have to do it. And sometimes it's like from 1 minute to the next, you're like, oh, this is great. And the next minute you're like, no, this isn't going to work. I think that if you find that burning passion and you find that burning desire, and like, for me, it was things that just kind of organically just started falling into place, you know, and I think you have to look for those signs, right? But like, there were some really ugly times too, of like, you just want to give up, you know, and even after your business opens, you think that it's going to be perfect and you think everything's going to be great. And we just ran into that. We had to put a whole new HVAC unit into our thing like a month after we opened. So there was that. But all in all, I think that like, you just have to push through. And even there are going to be times you're going to put your dream aside, and you're going to kind of push it aside, but always take it back up. Remind yourself, if it's important to you, just to keep one day at a time, you know, and keep seeking out those resources and keep talking about your ideas to people. Because if you keep it, I mean, I think there's like a certain thing, you know, you hear people say, keep your successes silent and whatnot, but I think there's also a lot to say, especially culturally for us, like that it's a village of people. And I will have to say that, like, it's a village of people. I mean, I can talk about relatives that encouraged us that I haven't spoke to in years, you know. You just have to do it. And I think that's one of the things I talk about quite frequently to people is like, I cannot believe, like, I'm telling you, I have mental health, I have ADHD, I have, you know, I can't focus, I'm a procrastinator. Like, don't think that, like, just, you have to have it all together. You know, you don't. And there are days, I don't know anything about accounting, really, honestly, like I don't, and I'm having to learn all those things. And it's just kind of, it's like going to college for business when you own a business, and it's just kind of fun. Every day's an adventure. So just keep fighting through, just keep pushing through, and reach out to me, reach out to other people that have businesses. I know Gallup sometimes gets a bad rap, you know. I love it here. There are so many good people here, and there are so many good businesses here, and like people that are willing to help. And I would have never seen that if we didn't plant our roots here. So I'm so grateful for that. Just, yeah, that's
Okay.
That's
So
it.
at the beginning of our conversation, you did elaborate a little bit more about your culture and your heritage. And those are the two biggest pillars that I myself have always gone into conversations about, because every time I go anywhere, I'm met with a conversation of what is asset and wealth building to you? What does that look like for you? And I always tell people, you're going to have to replace those two words with culture and heritage for me, because I refuse to look at the dynamics of that. And you were spot on, and you can echo that same message that I have, because again, banks wanted collateral from you, and you weren't able to collateralize a lot of what you had. And that went back because culture and heritage teach you that, if you're culture and heritage, cultivation, farming, ranching, those are assets that we have, that we count as assets for ourselves. But, society doesn't look at it like that, because they're not able to hold on to it and say, okay, yes, we can take this. And we live in an area where we can't collateralize the property that we have, because it's not ours. We're living on, allotments and tribal trust. So we're already met with those barriers. And then again, internally, everything is in Windrock, whether you're Eastern or Western agency, you always have to go to that capital, and we're a border town. So it's like an easy 30-45 minute drive. All the resources are there, and the turnover rate's very high. We see a lot of that. So I'm just going to commend you on throwing in your culture and heritage in there. But in addition to that, I have one more follow-up question. Did you meet any barriers going into the application process, or any like hardships, being that from experiencing like being in a biracial marriage, knowing that your partner wasn't from Navajo? That's one thing I've always commended you for, and I want some feedback on.
So actually, the business is, I own the business. So it's all me. And that's something I can talk about, because honestly, my entire life has been a cultural struggle for me, because I am so light skinned, right? I mean, I was done, and I felt not Native, and I felt not Navajo, and thank God, like, I'm finally in this phase where it's like, okay, my culture is important to me, and I want to start bringing that back into my life. But it was difficult, and it still is difficult, because I get a lot of people that come in and they'll say, I thought this place was Native owned. I'll introduce my husband, and they'll say, I thought this was Native owned. And I'm like, well, I am Navajo, and I do own this business. So thank you. I think that's a little bit of a struggle. People are more open-minded to it. I think you have to explain it a little bit. But yeah, that was a bit of a struggle.
It comes as a shock to most, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always say that, and I have to ask that question, because I face that a lot as well. I've always been in conversations where my background was questioned, and it was like, okay, well, she doesn't look like she's Native American, so you're automatically, you're on the chopping block until you start speaking and you start atoning for your culture, your heritage, your background, where you're from. And if you can speak and know the language, the culture, the tradition, and then at the same time, marrying outside of Navajo. So I always want to throw that conversation in there, just to, show what that looks like, and what it looks like for business owners such as yourself, or anybody in any professional field entirely. But we want to thank you for coming on, giving us your time, your experience, your feedback. And once again, we're always here as a tribal liaison and a mentor myself. I'm always in your corner. So if there's ever any resources or anything that you need, and anybody else that is listening to the podcast, I would echo the same message, that if there's something that you want to do, there's a saying that if that goal or that change that you're making doesn't scare you, then it's not big enough. And I want to commend you for not putting that folder away. I want to commend you for not putting that business plan away, and for being as adamant and persistent and resilient as you were to make your dream a reality, and owning and operating that gym. And congratulations, and more to your success and your future success.
Thank you so much, Mytegia. Thank you. Thank you, Cecilia, for having me.
No, thank you guys. And I just want to, before we get off, say, you guys are both incredible women, Native women, who are just trailblazers. And I think Gallup, New Mexico is very lucky to have both of you. So just continue to do what you guys are doing and lead the way you're leading. And I think you guys really are helping to create a stronger community. So thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you.